and welcome to today's Instagram Live. I am Shreya Bajaj, the Digital Marketing Manager at Coastr and your host for today. Today's live is special for two reasons. Firstly, because it is the very first episode of our flagship property Coastr Asks, and secondly, because it features the industry veteran Steve Wright. But first, what is Coastr Asks? Coastr Asks is a journey into the what, why, and how of the vehicle rental and fleet industry. Here we explore trends, gather responses, and share insights from the best of minds in the industry to give you a 360-degree view of the future of rentals. Join us as we interview and get expert opinions from rental experts, automotive gurus, travel specialists, trade associations, and technologists to make the world of fleet and rentals simple and efficient. And today we have the expert himself, Steve Wright from the LPHCA, who will give us a glimpse into the world of private hire. So bear with me while I get Steve online. Hi Steve, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Steve, you're a man who needs no introduction, but I'll still go ahead and give a basic introduction to our audience, and we let the audience know more about you through our discussion. So Steve has been in the automotive industry for 50 years now and has worn several hats during his illustrious journey. In 1974, he set up the college radio cars in Harrow, London, following a year as a self-employed driver, where he was astonished to see that the London industry was not licensed, while the rest of the England was in 1976. This was the beginning of his quest to get the London industry regulated, which he successfully did in 1998 and was awarded an MBE for the same. Following this milestone, he worked in various capacities such as an advisor, member, supporting stakeholder of the London Mayor Ken Livingstone's Safer Travel at Night initiative, Transport for London, and the Taxi and Private Hire Services reform for getting the London taxi and private hire vehicle industry licensed. Most recently, Steve is focused on running the LPHCA, a trade body that passionately represents the interest of the licensed taxi and private hire operators, mostly the minicabs and chauffeurs, that take pre-bookings in the UK. Currently, he is also working on the dire shortage of taxi and PHV drivers and the government's current best practice guidance consultation, which is live right now. Now over to the man himself. Hi, Steve, and once again, a warm welcome to our Instagram Live.
Thank you.
So Steve, let's dive right into the discussion and unravel the world of PCO and private hire. So can you give an audience a glimpse of what the LPHCA is and who is it for?
Well, we're a trade association that represents operators directly, and of course indirectly we help their drivers when they've got problems. But primarily we're an operators organisation, the people that run fleets, the people that have cab offices, and we have nearly 300 members in the UK. There would have been a lot more, but actually they've been buying each other. So consolidation has taken place and things change. We interface indirectly to between 25,000 and 30,000 drivers that work or agency to those companies. And we're there to try and make the nightmare that is bad regulations and bad rules and ridiculous things that go on in the industry more palatable for our members. Today's calls, I've had a driver that's from one of our operators whose license is Bermuda Triangle. He's facing being out of work completely. I've had people from the medical saying they've got difficulties getting medicals. I've had members email me to say that they can't get their vehicles licensed. They've got problems with age limits, with tinted windows. The list is quite extensive. And there's also a government best practice document out at the moment. We responded to the last one, and a lot of work gets done before that. We've actually, some of the questions that they're asking people, I told the minister over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's work that goes on in the background that often doesn't get seen, that we do. And ultimately, it isn't the licensing officers that make the decisions, it's the politicians. So from a very early age, I learned that all solutions are political, particularly with regard to changing regulation and what have you. Yes, the licensing people have an input, but ultimately you've got to convince the politicians. So that's what we do, and there's loads of things going on at the moment.
Right, great to hear that, Steve. So can you also tell us why is there a need for a trade body like the LPHCA in today's time? I'm sure you did cover that in the initial bit, but on a broader spectrum, why do we need a trade body like the LPHCA?
Well, once upon a time I was a driver, and then worked out I felt I could run as an operator, started up my operating business, my cab company, College Radio Cars back in the day with two-way radios in Harrow. And I was flabbergasted that there was no trade body, because anybody that knows anything about this industry will tell you that even the biggest of operators have a problem influencing government regulators and what have you. So as individual companies, you haven't got a chance. So I joined the first trade body in 1974, and immediately started campaigning to get licensing. It didn't happen in 1976 with the rest of the country in London, so that became a quest. Now, many operators had talked about it, but doing it by themselves is difficult because operators do have to run a business, feed the family, etc., earn a living. And rather madly, I went from being somebody that did just that into putting my hand up at a meeting and getting volunteered to run the trade body as well. I did the two things for 5 years, but I sold my company in 1999 and concentrated, having got the Act of Parliament in, concentrated on doing that, because you need a trade body. Individual operators, all pulling in different directions, all asking different things, isn't the way forward. What you actually need is one voice and a democracy, and we do everything by vote. If we have any serious matters to discuss, we'll poll our members, we'll have a democratic vote, and we'll give them a real chance to make change. And we have made some fantastic changes over the years. And it's because of the unity and the concept of having a trade body. And it needs to be a trade body for operators, not for drivers. Drivers have different interests, and there are other trade unions out there. So that's why you need a trade body. And, we're very successful in doing that. I think we had about 6 when we started up. We had our first inaugural meeting with 10, and to get up to 300 is quite an achievement, from right the way from Inverness in Scotland right the way down to the south coast of England.
Definitely, yeah, it's quite an achievement. Also, Steve, now that you've been in the industry for 50 years, we know a lot about you, but can you tell us something that we don't know about you from a professional front? Can you give us an introduction of yourself?
Well, I used to be a driver, and I did about 500,000 miles of driving. And of course, like many of the operators that are joining us today, I spent Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, etc., with my dinner being brought down to me on a plate, in the office, answering the phones and doing the rest of it. So having been an operator, a driver, a telephonist, and having done the whole 9 yards, I do actually understand the industry. So that's always been very helpful. It was, once upon a time, people used to say, oh, you're only doing this to benefit your own company. But no, it was bigger than that. The industry needed help and it needed a voice. So that's how I sort of got into it. In 1989, I met a lady called Diana Lamplu, whose daughter had disappeared, sadly, in broad daylight. And it transpired that she may have been touted by an illegal tout. So Diana took an interest in that, found out there was no legislation in London, and she basically volunteered me. She said, Steve, I need some help to get licensing in London. Will you help me? And she was the kind of lady that, she'd lost her daughter effectively. We know that the daughter's been murdered, but the body's never been found. And she volunteered me to do it. I'd always been on the side of trying to help all operators. We had good relationship with operators. And what I try to do, and what I've tried to do throughout everything, is to get operators to work together, because divided we fall. But, we're a powerful group, but we don't punch our weight. We still haven't got enough members. We need more. And there's a lot coming down. And if people don't actually stick together, the big bully boys will wipe us out. So that's part of the reason of the way I've done things.
Great. So, I mean, it's safe to say that you've seen it all, right? From an operator to a driver to then being on consultations and boards for setting up these standards and privatizing the industry. So if our audience has any questions for Steve, please pop them in the comment section and we'll pick them up once we have the discussion. So Steve, you did briefly mention why you started the LPHCA. Can you give us more details on what motivated you to do so back in the 1989?
Well, I didn't really start it, to be frank with you. What happened was I joined the first trade body, which was called the Minicab and Private Hire Association. The name of that was changed to the Private Hire Car Association. And each time legislation looked like it was coming in, it collapsed. And membership grew, and then it fell away, and then it became insolvent and what have you. So the person that had started all these trade bodies, a chap called Gideon Fiegel, who ran a company in London, said to me that he was getting on a bit. He really needed some help, and he couldn't really continue. The association in '89 was falling into disrepair, but it was quite clear when I met Diana Lamplugh that there was going to be a real push to get licensing, and I felt we needed to have the voice to be in it. So at that point, I really got into it as a trade body. We had a constitution, which we've still got written in writing from back in 1993, that sets out the aims and objectives, which we've done. We said we'd have a quality assurance system. We do have that. It's been on hold due to the pandemic, but it will be coming back soon. We also said that we would get some information out. Now, back in the day, one or two will smile. It was by carrier pigeon and fax machine in those days, and post. And of course, this was before the internet was really prevalent. So we started sending out the odd letters, the odd fact sheet and what have you, faxing stuff to people, and gradually building it up and meeting the objectives that we set out to do. We also then brought online Private Hire News magazine, which at various stages did a lot to help us because we had a voice in a publication. And famously, when the Act of Parliament was going through London, it was waived. It was waived in Parliament by one of the Black Cab MPs who said, Steve Wright said. And you know at that point that you were on the right strategy when somebody's quoting you in the Houses of Parliament to the government minister, that you're making an impact. So we did all of those things, and now we've moved into a portal-based system, which will be coming post-pandemic more and more into the fore. And of course, Private Hire News is online, and we've got all, the youngsters in the team have got all the smarts, the Instagram, the Facebooks, and the Teams and the Zooms and what have you. But we've actually had Zoom Professional for a period of time now. So to be quite honest with you, that's worked very, very well.
Right. I think that's great to hear, and it's more fabulous that you have about 300 members in the LPHCA, and I think Coastr is also a very proud gold partner of the LPHCA. So Steve, can you tell us what are the support a company gets if they become a member or partner of the LPHCA?
Well, they sort of get me 24/7, including Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. That's one of the things they get. I do get called, and I am often able to help them when I take the phone on holiday. I'm always there. But we also have a legal helpline that the members can go on with Krona, and that gives professional advice. And the first time a member used it, they saved themselves £10,000 in a tribunal dispute. So that's very popular. That gives advice on VAT, tax, legal disputes, employer stuff and what have you. And of course, we've got our e-alerts and our e-systems. And of course, we are building the portal now to put a lot more behind closed doors, because a sort of criticism from some members is that actually you share too much with too many. So we do have an amount of things we do privately with members, and only the members get those benefits. And we have a lot of things that we do for the wider industry, but we are very focused on delivering member benefits. So the legal helpline costs nothing. To join it yourself would cost £2,000 or £3,000. We provide that for all the members. They have access to it, and it's really, really used by a lot of people. So that's one benefit. We've got a grading system, and people have won £250,000 contracts by actually using our reports to help them get the procurement over the line. And when that goes portal-based, that will actually take that to another level. So again, plenty of things to do. I can speak. I mean, obviously, I've worked with Boris Johnson. He appointed me when he was Mayor of London. I worked with Ken Livingstone. I've met Sadiq Khan a few times to change some things. So as I've grown into the job, I've got the political clout and the way to open doors. We actually had 4 Department for Transport officials attend our recent national forum in Manchester, which will be going in private hire news online. And it's fascinating, you know, the people we had on, the real operators talking about real problems. But we also had licensing authorities, we also had government officials, and we also had big corporate companies sitting in the audience. So at the end of the day, if you can put 200 people in a room and talk about common things and get total consensus from those people, you're speaking alongside others. It's very, very rare that we have any divisive issues amongst the members, because we will talk them through. We'll tell the people why we're doing something, and then we'll vote on them and agree them.
Right. That's, I think, fabulous. And anybody from the private hire and PCO industry hearing, if you want Steve 24/7, like he said, and plus the extra benefits that he mentioned, please do write to Steve or Coastr on how you can get your LPHCA membership, and we'll guide you in the right direction. Also, if you have any questions for Steve, please start popping them in the chat, because we just have one question left, and then we'll take on the audience questions. So Steve, you did mention 300 members, the support, etc. But how does one become a member of the LPHCA? What are the prerequisites, and what are like the fees attached to becoming a member?
Well, we have 2 levels of membership. At the moment, we've just been doing the standard membership, which comes without the visit and the inspection and the quality assurance side. But that gets your foot in the door, and it gets you all the newsletters, it gets information. And importantly, we also straighten out the misinformation. One subject where there's a lot of misinformation out there is that everybody's going to have to pay VAT. That's not what our legal advisors have said. That's not what the Department for Transport have said. That's not what HMRC have said. But there's a lot of people out there on the chat saying, oh, we're going to all have to pay VAT, blah, 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 blah. And what we can do is actually say, well, no, we'll have a webinar on this. We'll get the experts on the webinar, the members webinar, and we'll talk through the realities of what it all means. And we've advised members on that particular subject because over the Christmas period, Transport for London in December responded to a court case earlier in December where there was a ruling. And it hardly mentioned VAT, yet rumours are abound everywhere about everybody would have to sort of be paying VAT. Well, that's not true. It's not the case. And what we do to members is through our legal advisors, we look at terms and conditions, and we actually encourage them to get experts from the sector like Easy Tax and Travis Morley, our legal advisors, to actually have a look at their terms and conditions so that they stop a problem before it starts. A lot of people are reactive. We like to be proactive and actually say, let's solve problems before we've got them. Let's not try and put the fire out if the fire's never going to start. Let's have a real look at things. So that's typical of the way that we do things.
Right. And what about the different packages and the fees involved for these membership categories?
Well, the membership categories, entry level up to 40 cars, is £100 plus VAT a year, which is £2 a week for up to 40 cars. That's the standard membership. It's about double that for graded and potentially the cost of coming to visit you. But you get a full report with that. And as I say, some people have got multi-million-pound contracts over it. So that's being more and more asked for in procurement. So it then goes up. I mean, I got to tell you that, for a company of scale, up to 100 cars, it's probably £400 a year, which is £1 a day. What we wanted to do was, I don't get paid. I do it on a voluntary basis. But what I need to do is be able to fund what we do and the staff that we have. So we deliberately kept the fees low. And they might have to go up because obviously we're all under challenging situations at the moment. But yeah, basically you can enter, it's £100 to join. But we do from time to time put special offers on for people to encourage them to join. And we say to everybody, if you don't like what you've had in year one, we give you £100 back plus VAT. And nobody's ever taken that. They've always found the benefit of being in the tent and alongside the other operators and working together they pass work to each other, they ring each other up with queries. Sometimes several of them come to me with, you know, the same query, and I can go on a call with all of them and chat through with our legal team exactly what they need to do. So it's easy to join. You can join on the website, lphca.co.uk. Membership is, and all the benefits of membership are up there, alongside a very easy process for joining. It's a sort of credit card payment initially, followed up by the setting up a direct debit, which can be cancelled at any time. But majoritively, most people when they join don't leave. If they go out of the membership, it's usually because they've gone out of the industry and not for any other reason.
Awesome. So I think while we wait for the questions from our audiences, we do have a few pre-submitted questions, Steve, if you can take them on in the meanwhile. So one of the private hire operator wants to know that, you know, the industry is going through a challenging time in terms of the driver shortage. What is going to come? What is in the consultation that can help these operators deal with that challenge?
Well, there's a number of things that, as I've said earlier, we've managed to actually get into the consultation that's out there at the moment. For example, age limits on vehicles. I'm a qualified engineer. I've been in transport all my life, and I got an engineering apprenticeship. So I understand mechanical engineering, and it's the condition of a vehicle, not the age of a vehicle. You know, a 1-year-old badly maintained, badly driven vehicle is a far more dangerous thing than a well-maintained 10-year-old vehicle. So we're working on that. We're also looking, and we've convinced the Department for Transport to put this in the consultation, that you should be looking at air quality as opposed to an age limit. And you've got to take account of things like specialist vehicles, the lack of vehicles, the lack of the second-hand marketplace and what have you. So all of these things are getting in. So age limit's been a critical thing. Another stupid thing is some licensing authorities making people take out tinted windows. We've had great success fighting that and preventing that. We've also prevented mandatory CCTV. Our view on that is if a driver wants CCTV, that's fine, but it should be mandated across the board. So again, licensing authorities have looked at that. That's in the consultation, alongside a lot more. Also signage, you know, ridiculous signage regimes and livery regimes and what have you. There are some ridiculous ones out there. And of course, all of these things are conspiring to stop people entering the industry. Another thing we've got into the consultation is private hire drivers needing to do a knowledge test, which isn't necessary. It hasn't been necessary. The Law Commission said it wasn't necessary. And all of these things are adding cost. One of the things we covered in the forum the other week was medicals. You can't get GPs to do your medicals. You can't see your own GP because of COVID and all manner of reasons. And again, we've moved the debate so that more and more councils are actually using companies like D4 Drivers to get a 55 quid medical without seeing your GP and without actually, you know, getting the eye test done at the same time. All of these things, wherever we go to a council, we usually make headway. And where there are stupid tests and stupid requirements, generally we can change the landscape. Another is plate exemptions. You know, turning around to somebody running an executive car and say they need a plate on the back, and they will only not let you have a plate on the back if you send them all your contracts and you don't go to pubs and you don't do airport runs. All of that stuff's a nonsense. So we're very, very pleased that we've got a lot of that in the consultation that's out at the moment, and it's up to the trade, all those people out there, to really put forward their views. We will put forward strong views, but you know, we've managed to get that in through work that we've done. It's now up to the guys and girls out there to respond. Use the foot in the door that we've got to actually change things for yourself and make it easier to get drivers.
Right. And one more question that we had was, where can we get this consultation online? How can you get access to it?
Well, it's at the Department for Transport's website. It's also in the last edition of Private Hire News. I believe there's a link to it as well. But if anybody wants the link, if they email me, steve@lphca.co.uk, I can send it out. I have just written the Private Hire News is going to press any day now, and the link will be in there. But you've got 2 weeks. It's the 20th of June. It really is important to respond to this and to have your say and to make your points loud and clear. And there's most of the things in there are positive for operators and positive for drivers.
Great. So I think in the interest of time, Steve, we will wrap it up. And in case we've got one question, looks like a lot of paperwork around, a lot of paperwork is done around these processes. Are there ways to go digital, and what initiatives have been taken by the LPHCA?
Well, of course, we encourage technology, and it's part of the reason we're partnered with you, because of your wonderful systems. We talk to all the dispatch companies. I developed our own software, and the technology offers a lot of solutions. And it's one of the things, of course, we're doing with licensing authorities, is actually encouraging them to make life much easier, much simpler, and to get things done online. But equally important, once they've gone online, the process needs to be fit for purpose, because you often find with some licensing authorities that they've got this very complicated system. It needs to be simple, and it needs to not let you fall down any cracks when you're using it. So technology is absolutely critical. And we've had conferences with government, with big licensing authorities, with the Department for Transport and others, on making it much easier to actually do processes. And it's a major, major thing that we do.
Great. I think digitization is the need of the hour, and it's great to see LPHCA moving in that direction. We have another question from Samskar. The current time frame for new drivers is well over 6 months. Do we know when the time frame for this is going to be reduced?
Well, we're working, what we're hoping is some of the things that are going to come out of the consultation that's there will reduce the time frame. But we're working with major authorities like Transport for London, Transport for Greater Manchester. I've spoken to Council, I've spoken to the Welsh National Assembly, I've spoken to the Nicola Sturgeon's Transport Minister up there in Scotland, about making everything quicker. I've had 2 calls this week from the BBC. We did a national television coverage to highlight the fact that it's great saying under health and safety we're making the world a safer place, but if you're making the world a safer place by introducing layer and layer of unnecessary bureaucracy, you're not making the world a safer place. And I told the TV companies in no uncertain terms that councils need to get really sorted out and really get into the business of doing what they're meant to do under the law, which is licensing people. There's all sorts of stupidity been going on, and we're very, 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 very loud about it. And the next edition of Private Hire News is going to cover more of that, and our own, of course, our own road shows and national forums and what have you. We just have to make more and more noise, but the more and more people making the more and more noise, the more powerful we'll get, and the more things will get done for people. So there's no magic wand, but we've already started to improve processes. I can tell Sam's Cars that I got a letter that came from their licensing authority, and it had 2 things in the letter that weren't true. So this week I've gone back to the licensing authority and said, by the way, you're writing to people and telling them about something that isn't accurate. Now they've come back to me literally today to say, oh, you've made some good points there. All of that wastes a great deal of time in getting drivers licensed. So it's all these little small acorns, if you like, that actually will build the oak tree. We just keep on having to go on at them. But the more people that go on at them with us, the better. So, unity is our strength. And it was great to have over 200 operators in the room in Manchester last week with the Department for Transport, with licensing authorities, with lawyers, with people all commonly saying we need to improve the licensing process, we need to make it quicker, otherwise we're going to have safety issues. And that's the current message from me. You're causing danger and safety to the public, and it's a good message to get across to them.
Definitely, yeah. So I think we'll wrap it up now, Steve. For Akash, who's asked about the benefits, it's all available on the LPHCA website, so please do go ahead and read that. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your insights with us, and I'm sure that the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. If anybody on the chat or anybody who's seeing the video wants to become a member of the LPHCA, please do write to Steve or get in touch with Coastr, and we'll direct you to Steve so that you can become a member of the institute. Also, if you do have any burning questions around anything fleet or rental, do tag Coastr or use the hashtag CoastRAsks, and we'll get the answers for you from our industry experts. Once again, thank you so much, Steve, for being a part of this conversation, and everybody for joining in. Have a great rest of the day.
And thank you very much, and all the team at Coastr for putting this together. This is the first Instagram one that I've done, and I've had a bit of technical support from the younger generation, but it's gone very well. We're always pleased to talk to people, and thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Steve, and have a good day.
You too, Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.